Alright, hello everyone. So my name is Luisa. If you don't know me, I'm an Adobe Illustrator. I've been in the fashion industry for over 5 years now, and I'm going to show you guys today how to make a repeat pattern. Now you could use a repeat pattern for either a print on a fabric, on a t-shirt. You could use a repeat pattern for pillowcases or pretty much anything that you would consider a pattern to go on. I'm going to show you guys how to make it on Illustrator. All right, so we're going to start off and we're going to clean the Adobe page. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off making just the basic print. So we're going to actually make this print today. You can see there, zoom in and bear with me with my screen sharing skills. It's my first video ever, so you know, just because I'm good at Illustrator doesn't mean I'm always the best screen sharer. So everything's new to everyone, right? All right, so we're gonna actually make that print that we just showed, and we're gonna go ahead and turn off our clipping mask. Coming up, enlarge our layers panel so you guys can see exactly what we're working on. The layers panel in Illustrator is, I would say, a very important aspect. So we're going to go ahead and start with just the triangle. Now our goal is to make that geometric pattern that we saw, so we're going to go ahead and start with just the triangle. As you can see, it's trying to locate the clipping mask, so we're just, like we said, we turned it off, but it's still there, visible. So I definitely want to make sure that that's not, so I'm going to go ahead and move it to a new layer. There we go, perfect. And we're going to turn off that layer, so now it's not bothering us. So now we have a triangle. We're going to go ahead and duplicate that triangle, and we're going to duplicate it just by holding Option Shift on your Mac key. So Option Shift after you select the object. So you're just going to select it, Option Shift, and move it to where you want. That's going to duplicate the object. All right, so I want 3 of these, one on the top, one in the middle, and one on the bottom. I'm going to make the 3 of them, and I already had them here, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete the ones that I had. So the ones that I had before, delete, and you can see that they're turned off, delete. All right, so now I have my 3 triangles. For some reason, just because I want them to be distributed evenly, so I'm gonna go ahead and click vertical distribution center. What that's gonna do is gonna make sure the space in between these two is exactly the same, and that's what I want. I'm also going to go ahead and click all 3 of them, and I'm going to make sure that they're aligned horizontally. Now I don't want to align them vertically, because if I did that, let me show you guys really quick, that would make them all one behind the other. So I don't want that, just want it vertically. All right, so now we got that. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the squares that are gonna go behind it. So I'm gonna move that square that I put on top. I'm gonna turn these squares off. As you can see, they were already there, but I do want that color, so I'm just gonna make a little square in the corner here, and I'm gonna move this one to the back. Now you can either click arrange, send to back, or you see there's a shortcut. It's gonna be Shift Command. And sometimes, oh, because I'm clicking the wrong thing. There we go. And it's not working, so it's gonna be Shift Command. I think it is in the back, but since they're the same color, you see, silly me, silly. So now we're gonna go ahead and make the other side. Again, copy with Shift Option. Now I want to make sure everything is aligned perfectly, because with a repeat pattern, that's a really important aspect to consider. For everything to be very smooth in a repeat pattern, you have to make sure that all the edges are aligned. So in order to everything mathematically, and I want to use smart guys. So the smart guys, if you saw the pink little arrows before, let's do it again. Shift Option to make sure it's a duplicate, and that pink little cross, that's showing me that it's exactly aligned. that the edges are together. We're gonna go ahead and move into Y mode. Now Y mode is just the outline mode, so it shows you everything without the colors. Now you see the lines of the two rectangles are perfectly aligned, not one is overlapping the other. If that were to happen, it would be something like that. We don't want that. But they are not aligned with the triangles. And well, that's obviously an important factor. So we're going to delete those old squares. We're actually going to delete this grouping because it seems to be bothering me. And we're going to grab the 3 triangles and we're going to move them to be aligned. So we're going to grab one. And there we go. Intersect. And you see how the smart guides just helped me. I'm going to move back. Move in and show you guys that the smart guides, it says intersect. Oh, but it didn't catch. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. You gotta really be zoomed in for this. And then usually, there we go. So right now the smart guides didn't actually help me, but that's okay. The Y mode did. So one thing, not the other. There we go. Perfect. Now I do want them to be different colors, so let's just pick this one. Perfect. All right, and then this is this color. Perfect. So now we have all the colors that we want. What I want to do now is I want to go ahead and I'm going to do both at the same time. So I'm going to grab both of these with my direct selection tool and I'm going to move them up where the smart guides are going to tell me exactly where the center point of that triangle is, and we can go ahead and confirm it. And you see smart guides lied. There we go. And the smart guides actually help guide me to exactly that point. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not, so you turn it on and off as you see need be. So there you go. I want to go ahead and make another box and I don't have to make it this long. I'm going to overlap it just so you guys can see, and I want to move this one up. There we go. And the smart guides helped me there, so that's perfect. So now I'm going to move out of Y mode and I'm just going to make a duplicate. Same thing, have the smart guides help me, and Y mode. There we go. And you see how I only see one line? That's what I want. So I'm just going to move out of Y mode, zoom back out. And I want my colors to be different. I want them to be opposite. So there we go. So this is actually the geometric pattern. This one, you just don't see it yet. I'm going to show you how we're going to get there. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete the old clipping mask and I'm going to make a new one. For your, there we go. So for your clipping mask for a pattern, it can actually be any size. It can be a circle if you want to make it. So there we go. We want it to align with the center point of the triangle, and I want it to cut off exactly at the edge of the triangle. Now the reason I'm looking for the center point of the triangle is a really good reason that I'm going to explain to you guys now. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Now we're at the perfect edges of the triangle, but we're not at the center point. Oh, almost there. There we go. And the smart guides actually help me move there. But the reason we want that is because this, remember, is a repeat pattern, just like how its name kind of tells us. What that means is it's gonna align and meet up on its edges. So in order for us to make sure that the edges line up smoothly, we need to cut them as smooth as possible. So if the bottom lines up with the top, we're gonna see here, and this is this outline right here, this rectangle I got going on, that's gonna be our clipping mask. So this is gonna be the top and the bottom. So this part is gonna match up with this part on the bottom. You'll understand a little bit better once we do the clipping mask. So I believe that's kind of like a good line up. I'm gonna grab everything, and you see I actually didn't grab everything because it's telling me I didn't grab, so I'm just gonna grab the whole layer. It's probably the best thing to do. I'm gonna go to options, objects, sorry, clipping mask and make, and you see there's actually a shortcut and it's Command 7. So same thing, select everything, Command 7, perfect. And that's my clipping mask, and that's gonna be the base of the pattern that's gonna repeat. So in order to get a little cheat on make sure everything's gonna line up, I'm gonna repeat it. I'm just gonna line it up to the bottom, so that's gonna repeat at the bottom. So I want to make sure it lined up smoothly, and it did. And that smart guides really helped us to make sure everything lined up smoothly. So perfect, we have the bottom and the top lining up, so that's kind of gonna be a vertical repetition. Now I'm gonna go ahead and copy it on the side, and that's what it's gonna look like on a side to side. So when it repeats, so it's gonna repeat. Ooh, sorry, that you gotta get used to that with Illustrator sometimes. There we go, you see, so that's gonna repeat just like so. So we're gonna delete that, and I like how it repeats. I'm gonna go ahead and go into Y mode to make sure everything lines up smooth. Now what I want to line up is right here. I want these exactly to line up perfectly. I don't need the colors to be the same. I actually want them to be opposite colors, so that's perfect. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Technically it's the same because it's just the other side, but I'm just gonna do it just to double check. You can see the little colors line up perfectly. So we have our repeat pattern. We checked it against all edges and it looks good. We're gonna click it, just the clipping mask. We're gonna make sure it's clean. It doesn't have any turned off layers. We don't have to name anything. We could if we want, but we don't really need to. So we're gonna grab our clipping mask, and we can do two things. So we can move it to the swatch board, and that's just gonna make a basic one. So we're gonna have to click on it to then edit it. So or let me show you the second option. I'm gonna cancel. I'm gonna delete that pattern. Make sure you're not clicked on anything when you click on the swatches in the pattern, because it will apply that to anything you have clicked on. Or we can click the clipping mask again, go to object pattern make. This is obviously a longer step, but I actually do usually like doing it this step just because it always takes me to this pattern options. So I like to do size tile to art instead of move tile art. Honestly, I don't really know what the difference is, but the reason I like size tile to art is because it does a 0 point on vertical and horizontal line point. So what that means is it lines up everything smoothly. I'm just gonna move it. There we go. The way I just did what I did is I choose the F key. That gives me full screen or non-full screen. So you can do that always whenever you're presenting. Just do full screen and then full screen and then F again to get out of everything there. All right, so I like this. Everything's lining up really smooth. Now they have different options here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but when you do get to know the patterns, you can play with them. This is going to be the copies, so you can see exactly the pattern. This is a 7x7 repeat, and it has dimmed out the repeat side, and then it has visible 100% opacity what it's going to repeat. So I like how it's looking. It's obviously not going to be dimmed like that. It's going to be 100% opacity once we actually make the pattern, but I like it. We're going to call it Geo Pattern, and we're going to click Done. Oh, and it says the names already exist. Overwrite, blah, blah, blah. That's okay because I actually practiced before making the video for you guys. All right, so we're gonna delete the version we had with all the pattern. We're gonna make a new layer. I'm gonna make a little rectangle, and you see that's actually when I moved it into the swatch pattern that it didn't show up the pattern options, and it's not showing up here because I actually deleted that pattern, but it was still saved in my swatch key, so that's why that's showing up. And you can see if you don't go to pattern options, if you don't have your edges cleaned up. Now our edges were cleaned up, but with the clipping mask there was noise behind the clipping mask, so that's why when I just dragged it into the swatch panel, it saved like this. I would have had to click on, let me click on the pattern, double click, and then move here, where that's where I could have made my edits. So that's why I always like to just go to object pattern make. I'm gonna click my last pattern, and boom, there we have. Now you're like, it's not as small as how it was. Well, that's because it saves in the size that we made it. So if you're gonna 90% of the time do it in a very small scale, I suggest just saving the pattern in a small scale originally. As you can see, this is somewhat of a larger scale, so it displays in a large scale. If I knew that I was always going to use it on a very small scale, I would have just from the get-go shrunk it down and then made the pattern. But I don't mind it being big. I'm gonna go ahead and click on it. I'm gonna go to our scale tool, and I'm gonna unclick transform object, because we're not transforming the object, but we're transforming the pattern. So you can unclick this, it doesn't really matter, it's mainly the pattern. Make sure that's checked. I want it to be, I want to say, oh, and you see it clicked again, transform object, and I don't want that. You see, that's a good scale, 30, and we have our pattern, our geometric pattern. Ooh, sorry, buttons. So now you guys see, it's really simple to make a repeat pattern in Illustrator. It's really just a clipping mask and making sure all your edges lined up very smoothly. And like I told you, it didn't easily go into the swatch panel just because we had all this outside noise, you see. So that's why I always prefer, if you want that transition, you would just have to cut it. And instead of making a clipping mask, make sure that all the edges and extra noise is erased. That's another video to show you, or you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys really quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo the clipping mask, and you can see that's why it didn't smoothly transition. So I'm gonna click everything. I'm gonna go to my shape builder tool. I'm gonna click Alt as I click all the boxes I want to delete. There we go, and we have everything. So now I'm gonna move this all the way to the back because I still need this outline box. It's very important for the pattern to have kind of that outline box to understand where the pattern finishes and ends. Even though the pattern does align to its own square, the square is always helpful for Illustrator to get a good idea. I'm gonna click on it, and let's see if it goes ahead and lets us make a clean pattern now. All right, so now that we moved it, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off, turn on our patterns. Let me see, make this a color. Now I'm gonna move it to the pattern, and you see it did a clean cut because we gave it a clean pattern. It didn't have the clipping mask with the outside noise, so that's why. So those are two different options on how you can move your clipping mask into the swatch panel, and why perhaps sometimes it doesn't do a smooth transition. You would need to double click it and go to your pattern options and go to move tiles on a 0 to 0 scale. 0 to 0 scale means there's no space in between. So you see if I add space, you can see, or actually negative space where it's overlapping. And here we have our pattern. I also want to scale it, so I'm just gonna go back to my scale tool, unclick transfer object, and click OK, and now I have it scaled down. So this is my pattern. I'm really happy with it. I can change the colors. I just have to go to the same thing, pattern options, double click. I'm gonna go to my layer panels. So layers still exist in the pattern options, and here are all the layers. That's why it's really important to keep your patterns clean. Make sure you have no turned off layers, because all those turned off layers are gonna be saved inside the pattern, and you want to make sure it's as clean as possible, so when you do choose to edit it, you don't have all that extra noise. So here I can change the colors if I want to say, let me see, I want to make the center triangle. Now I can either save a copy or I can edit the original pattern. I want to edit the original, and it's going to go ahead and change the original pattern on this Illustrator file. If the pattern is living in another Illustrator file, it will not affect that, only this current one that I'm working on. So there we go. I hope this was super helpful for you guys. Again, this was my first YouTube video with the screen sharing and the screen audio, so it's definitely a learning process for me on making these YouTube videos. I hope you guys enjoyed it and you definitely learned something. If there's some helpful hints on screen recording and audio recording that you could give me, please feel free to comment in the comment section. I'm always happy to hear your guys' thoughts and any extra helpful hints that can help me on my YouTube journey. So thank you guys for sharing, and thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys. I'm looking forward to sharing more helpful hints on how to use Illustrator. Bye.